So I'm going to talk about dark mode and SF symbols, although not in that order. So basically, Apple have gifted us these SF symbols, which is basically a library of icons that you can use in your apps. They are a little special in that they aren't bitmap based icons, they're vector based icons, but then also, as you'll see later, they aren't actually sort of defined as regular images. They behave more like a font, hence the SF in the name. It's San Francisco. Anyway, I'm going to put two and two together. And then I'm also going to talk about dark mode, which is an interesting change. So SF symbols. Like I said, it's a high quality set of vector icons that you can use in your app. And the important thing to note about them is that you define them in font points rather than on screen points. So you don't actually just ask for a 32 by 32 image, you actually ask for a 17 point icon. It is still all based on UI image, but UI image has added a whole bunch of extra methods and things for actually getting a font, an image that matches a specific text style rather than just a point size. And the benefit of that is that they strongly support dynamic type, and it is really easy to create a UI that has text and an icon together and have them all scale nicely together. And because most of the time you're going to have an icon next to some text. It's the way most UIs work. So it's a great advantage. Like I say, the support for dynamic type is really easy, as you'll see in the demo later. It's great. So along with that, Apple released a beta app called SF Symbols, unsurprisingly, that you can download for your Mac. It includes all the San Francisco font, and it also allows you, or rather it allows your designer to grab any symbol they want and use it in mock-ups. As long as the OS supports the San Francisco font, like installed. So I tried to display one in Google Docs, but of course that didn't work because it doesn't have the San Francisco font. So there you go. And it's also useful for developers in that you can peruse the entire list. You can pick up exactly the icon you want. And then the other thing for designers is that you can actually, from the app, export any of the symbols and use that as a template to build your own SF symbol, which is just really a giant SVG file. And as far as the whole designer thing is really interesting, I guess, if you're a designer. The WWDC session video goes into it in excruciating detail. But I think you just have to define a certain set of weights and a certain sort of set of sizes, I guess, to then have a nice dynamic icon that scales with your UI, with dynamic text. So, like I said, UI image has gained a lot of API. Basically, the most simple, obvious one is the UI image system name that you saw earlier in the Swift UI demo. That's different to UI image named that you're used to, that it basically takes, this is the kind of weak point of the thing, is it takes a string name of the symbol that you're interested in, right? Which you can get from the app, but there isn't like an enum or something somewhere in the system that lets you just like, it is a string. It's not great, but it works, I guess. You can also make your own, like I say, you can make your own symbols. You obviously can't load those with symbol named, you load those with just image named, the way you would, any image. And the nice thing about that is that if the device that is running the app isn't actually on iOS 13, because obviously SF symbols only exist on iOS 13 now, it will then load the same image in your asset catalog, as long as it's got the same name. So in your asset catalog you can actually have two images with the same name, apparently, but one is an SVG that has all the font stuff in it, and the other one is just a bitmap. So yeah, the other thing about it is obviously if you want to display the image, so you do that obviously with the image view, you can actually ask the UI image to give you symbol configuration, which has a bunch of overrides, but one of the most useful ones is the text style one. So if you have a label that's showing heading 1, right, and you want an icon to match that heading 1, all you do is say, give me an image with heading 1, and there you go. And it'll also update it with dynamic type. When you adjust the type size, it'll just update the image as well. Really nice. I'll show you in a demo later. The other thing that's really good about this is that images now have a defined baseline. So whereas before the baseline was always just the bottom of the image, that wasn't always useful in that you could have an icon that has like a tail that hangs down or whatever, and it would never actually kind of support that nicely. Obviously all these SF symbols have baselines defined for them, and they sit nicely with the baseline of a label if it's sitting next to one, which I'll show you in the next slide. But you can do that for any UI image, which is really nice. This is the bit that gets me, is sad, but actually is like the most interesting thing, is that so normally you would align an image with a label, and you'd center align it or whatever, and it looks okay, But as soon as you get more than one line of text, it doesn't look okay so much anymore. Well, it looks okay to you, but then your designer says, oh, I want the image to sit on the on the first line of the label. And that is like the hardest thing to do, because you do top align. Right, okay, that works, but it doesn't quite look right. And if you change the text size, obviously it moves around. So you offset it a little bit, but again, if you change the text size, then it's just gonna, go out of place. It looks really horrible. So now you can just do exactly that. You add a constraint, you say you want it to baseline align, and yep, the image just sticks right with the baseline of the first line of text, which is really nice. There's a whole bunch of other changes to UI image. Have a look at the documentation. Like I said, there's 21 of them. So there's overrides for getting symbol configuration for a specific font, a specific weight of the font, everything. I would just use the text style stuff because, like I said, that has dynamic text support, and it makes your life so much easier. If you define a hard-coded text size, font size, then you're going to have to then update that when the trait collection changes, like you would do for a label if you're not doing dynamic type automatically. So that's SF symbols. Onto dark mode. I'm kind of racing through this, I realise. So dark mode is just a trait. Apparently, I've been told it's pretty much exactly how they've done it in Android as well. So obviously, before you had a UI color, it was a color. But now you can have a UI color that will resolve to a specific color based on the trait collection that you have going. So basically, you can when you define a UI color in code, actually no, I'm skipping ahead. So the other things that respond to the trait collection stuff are UI images. So you can have a dark mode image and a light mode image, as you can see in there. Obviously there's a visual effect on top of it, but you can just about tell from these pictures that it's two different images behind the blur effect. And that's all done with the asset catalog, like you would do, I guess, on macOS, if you have any experience with that. And then you also get your visual effects stuff, so blur effects, vibrancy. They both get materials for light and dark, and you can set them specifically light or dark, or you can have them adjust to whatever the system's set to. So UI color is like the workhorse, I guess, of dark mode. Obviously, you're changing the color. There's two ways of doing it. In code, there's a new initializer that takes a closure that gets the trait collection, and then you can examine that to see whether or not you're in dark mode or not. And if you are, you return a color. If you're not, you return a different color. And whichever colors you want, that's up to you. the other way of doing it, which was news to me, which apparently you could do before iOS 13, is you can have colors in the asset catalog. And you can add an appearance to those colors, just like you can for a UI image. And you can just basically have the color named in the asset catalog. There's another constructor with UI color named. Pass it the name from the asset catalog, and you get the correct color depending on whether or not you're in dark mode or not. Yeah, so as far as other UI elements go, like I say, UI images get the same appearance. It's very similar to the way you set up a color in the asset catalog. You just add an additional appearance, and you set a different image for dark mode if you want. Visual effects, like I say, they get adaptable styles, so depending on whether or not you're in dark mode or not, they will show a different material. So you can go back to there you can see that the material used for the blur effect is slightly darker in dark mode. Oh, and the other thing is that they, activity indicators also. So activity indicators used to be large grey, I think, or large white or whatever it was, and the other one, the smaller version. But they redesigned the API because they realized obviously you don't want to impose an appearance on it, especially now that dark mode exists. So they basically just have large and medium now. When you define the activity spinner, you just basically say you want a large one or a medium one, and then you tint it whatever color you want. The color you tint it can obviously be an adaptive color, so it responds to dark mode as well. So you get a different activity spinner color depending on which mode you're in. Now the other interesting thing is obviously if you're drawing your own views, which I guess people do occasionally, if you override drawRect, you can basically ask for, there's a static method on UI Trade Collection called current, and that will return what it thinks that UI views sort of trade collection will be when it's added to the view stack. If it isn't already in the view stack, obviously if it is already in the view stack, then you'll get whatever view controller it was added to. Yeah, so that's interesting because it's thread safe as well, and you can set it. So you can, for drawing your custom view, if you always want to draw it in light mode, you just can set it to light mode or whatever, and then any time you interrogate it inside of that thread, it will return the value that you set it to. I would have a look at the video for this. It is kind of a weird description of it. I guess it's like a singleton, but again, it's thread safe, so I don't know. it makes sense. But yeah, if you're drawing your own view, then just get UI Trade Collection.current, and you're guaranteed to get the right. You can actually call UI Trade Collection view. UI Trade Collection.current anywhere you want, but it's only guaranteed to be set to the correct value in specific functions. So stuff like I guess viewable layouts of views or whatever it's called, draw with rect. There's a whole list of them. I'll go again, have a look at the documentation. But yeah, call it outside of that, then you'll get who knows. And then finally, you can opt out of dark mode altogether. You can say that your app is always in light mode or always in dark mode, whichever one you want. I'm guessing most people will probably, as part of upgrading to iOS 13, just initially say, fine, I'll just set it to light mode. I guess Apple are okay with that for now. Who knows how long they will be okay with that for, but hey, there you go. And then you can always override the trade collection like you've been able to in the past. So if you want a view controller to always be dark or always be light, you can just do that. And it will always be the trait you want. So, demo. So I'm going to start showing off the SWmobile app. It's a pretty simple app. It has all the symbols, and there are very, very many of them. There's some really weird ones in there, like there's the tortoise one.
Are there any cats?
I don't know if there are any cats. Nope, there are no cats.
What about cat singlet? Oh.
I know, it's disappointing. But yeah, there are all sorts of weird ones. I was looking for an artist palette. Like, you would think that there would be an artist palette. Nope, there is no artist palette. There is a whole bunch of other pencil ones I guess you could use. Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty basic app. You can select an icon. You can say copy the symbol, which will then put the symbol in the pasteboard. I mean, you can then open text edit and paste it in there. And hey, you got whichever icon you wanted. And obviously that applies for anything. As long as you've got the SF symbols font, it works. Obviously you're not supposed to use that for like distribution or anything. That's just for doing designs. I guess that doesn't really apply to you guys. I don't know, unless you are. I guess most single developer people are probably going to be their own designer as well, but there you go. So the most powerful thing about this is you can select any symbol and say export symbol. And that will export an SVG file that looks like that. So you can see they've put in all the weights. You don't necessarily have to specify all these weights if you're doing your own symbol. I think you just have to do regular and the different sizes, and then I think it just extrapolates from there. Or it might be the other axis, I'm not sure. Obviously you'll need something like Sketch or something, whatever you know. It's just an SVG, so you can just edit the XML yourself if you want. Yeah. And then once you've done that, you can take that SVG, import it into an asset catalog, and then refer to it by name. It's as simple as that. Yeah, so that's SF symbols. There's a burst. So actually looking at code, this is a little app I mocked up to demonstrate SF symbols. So you've obviously seen screenshots of it. So you'll notice this color here on Hello World is not white. There are quite a few levels of background color now. So I don't know if basically you've obviously got the system colors that have always been there. So one of them is background, one of them is label. So that label is in label color, and the background color is in background color. But that's the secondary background. And the thing with the background colors is that, and this is explained better in the video, but you don't always get the same background color. It's adaptive to the sort of Z index of your view controller. So if your view controller is covering another view controller, it will come up in a slightly different background color to the white that you'd expect. It's more obvious in dark mode. So if I switch this app to dark mode, I don't know if you guys have played around with Xcode 11, but there's this environment overrides thing that I guess is inherited from the SwiftUI stuff, but it's really useful because you can then just go in there and change your scene to dark mode. It's really nice. So you can see in dark mode it's a lot more obvious. So your first view controller background color will be the sort of black that you see behind Don't Mind Me. Then one step up from that, so if you present another view controller over that, you'll get this sort of slightly lighter black, grey, and then on top of that you'll get an even lighter grey. And there's a few levels of that. You can set those yourself like I've done here, but I mean obviously you just set your view controller background color to background color and you'll get the correct one, depending on how it's presented. The other cool thing about the environment options is that you can change the font size. Hey. And as you can see, the symbols just scale like fine with the thing. The baseline stays exactly where you'd expect it to be. You'll notice it's not aligned to the top because it's correctly aligned. It's great. I can't stress how cool that is. It's like yeah. The other thing you'll notice is obviously these color labels are changing color. That's done with one of them's done with the trait collection closure, and the other one's done with an asset catalog. So if I show you asset catalog, here it custom color. If I go to this color, hang on, if I add a new color, you get the default. Then you can also go in and add a dark mode color, which you can set to whatever you want. And that's pretty much that. It's yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's dark mode. We've been waiting for it for ages. There you are. It's finally here. Your users will be very happy. Yeah, so like I say, you get all these system colors for free, so it's probably worth using those, although I'm guessing every iOS developer is going to be using them. The same thing with the symbols, I guess. Eventually people are going to want to differentiate themselves and create their own symbols and things, but for now, I mean, you know, it's a great way to just get up and running easily, quickly. And if you want to support dark mode quickly and easily, again, you just use the system colors, so like system background, label and stuff like that. Same with the text styles, there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I would say go away and watch the WWDC sessions if you haven't already. Like I say, the symbols one goes way into nitty, so like the first half of the video is about how to like export an SVG and update the icon and stuff, you know. And then there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff about you know, images and layers and all sorts of things. The example code is on my GitHub, which is there. I don't know. I'll probably make this sheet available, slides available somewhere. That's it. Thanks for listening.